What's going on, guys? My name is Tom from Dreadlabs, and today we're going to learn about Y2K logos.
Dreadlabs.
Right, guys, you've probably seen these around, and these are mainly called Y2K logos because they are very much inspired by the early zeros, early 2000s. And today we're going to look into what makes them stand out and what makes a Y2K logo a Y2K logo. While we're going to do this, I'm also going to explain a couple of tricks you can do in Illustrator to make these logos. Alright, so all of these logos have something that makes a Y2K logo a Y2K logo in my opinion, and along the way I'm going to explain it, and every step we're going is one step further in this process. So this will be the first step, this will be the second one, and this will be the third. Alright, so the first thing that really makes a Y2K logo stand out is outlines. And as you can see, these mainly are made in two colors. So let me just type out this word, and I think this font is Akira. Let me just make this in the same color as the outline here. And we'll get started. So the first thing you notice is that this is the colors are switched around. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our text and we're going to create outlines. So now these are just regular shapes instead of a text object. So we cannot edit the text anymore at this point. That's very important to note. Now under Pathfinder, you can find us under Window Pathfinder. We can just merge these, so we're going to click on the Unite button. And now this is very important, this makes our process go a little bit easier, and that is we're going to go to Object, Compound Path, Make. Or you can also press Ctrl or Command 8 on your keyboard. And this makes it so that we cannot change these letters individually anymore. And the reason we're doing this is if we're going to make this into an outline, these outlines will not overlap, they will become one shape. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that by going to Object, Path, Offset Path. And as you can see, we can now make a sort of an offset, and this is going to be used as an outline in a second. So joins we're going to make into a round ones, that just gives it off a little bit more of a Y2K vibe, I guess. And the offset, I think we're going to use something like 7 pixels. And as you can see, the outline is now a separate object. And that's the reason why we went for a compound path here. So let me just move everything that we made so far into a new layer. So now as you can see, we have two objects and two compound paths to that. The top one is the original text and the bottom one is the outline. So now we're just going to go and make this into the color of the background here. So now we want to have that drop shadow effect. And we're going to do it by selecting the compound path. And by holding Alt or Option on our keyboard, we're going to move this one. And now we have a duplicate and we can put that anywhere we want. And as you can see, we already get that drop shadow effect because they were the same color. But now we need to simulate these paths here. And we can do that quite easily. So what we need to do is select both of the outlines. Go to Object, Blend, Make. And now this is a blend object. And if you don't know what it is, basically a blend object is a way to transition between two different shapes. For example, with this square and this ellipse, if we make a blend between these, you can see that there's a transition going on between this square and the ellipse. So if you make the original text invisible, you can actually see what's going on here. Basically there is a step between these two now. So if we go to Object, Blend, Blend Options, and if we click on Specified Steps, we can actually enter in how many steps we want. So if we make this 2, as you can see here in the corners, there's now 2 steps between these shapes. And we're going to type in 100. Basically, what this does is now we have so many steps in between here in such a small distance that this just looks like a smooth line now. So now again we want to go to Object and now expand this, and this will make your computer quite slow because this will get you 100 different shapes in between these two. So let's click on Expand, and as you can see by all of the outlines, you now have 100 shapes right behind each other. And we're going to do something that takes a little while, but we're going to unite them with the Pathfinder again. Alright, and now this will leave us with just one shape. And now if we make the original text visible again, this is where we get the drop shadow from. So if you want to do this, but you need one color, because now if we drag this onto here, you can see that we have 2 colors here. The easy thing to do is just select both of them and click on the minus front button here. And now we can just make this whatever color, and the background color will just apply to whatever is behind it. Alright, so the next tip is slanted text and rounding. As you can see in this font, there are a lot of roundings in the corners, and that's something that has been very common with Y2K logos, as well as slanting. So sadly, this font has been discontinued, so I cannot share it with you guys, or you cannot find it anywhere. At least I've looked and I cannot find it again. But let me just show you a way on how to round up your fonts. So let's just grab letter D and the letter L. And we're just going to go with the same font that was in here. And we're going to make these into outlines. So basically you want to have the hard edges here. So these two, and all of them are the letter L. We can do that by grabbing the direct selection tool, selecting both of them, and then select the whole L. And as you can see, already these like rounding options start to be visible, so we can just drag these in. And this will leave us with a rounded version of the letters. So now we can apply the same effects as that we did in this one. Alright, so now that we have the same effect as this one, the one thing you can still do to make it a little bit more Y2K stylish is slanting it. Right, so if you don't know how to slant text, there's a very easy way. So if you select this and press the letter E on your keyboard, the free transform tool will show up. And if you go to the top middle here, this like horizontal arrow will appear, or this cross horizontal arrow. And once you click this, you can actually slant your text like this. And once again, we are left with something that looks a little bit more Y2K than these guys here. Alright guys, so now we're going to look at the last step here, which is adding elements. As you can see, we got this nice circle of stars here, and I'm going to show you how to make them. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip this part because we've done it twice now. I'm just going to duplicate this text. If you want to load the font is called Neuropol. So we're going to grab the star tool and we're going to make a 5-sided star. And by pressing A on your keyboard or selecting the direct selection tool, we're going to soften up the edges here like this. And we're going to pick 2 positions here. And I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. Alright, so you might have guessed it already, but we're going to use a blend again. So we're going to go to Object, Blend, Make. As you can see, there's a line between the 2 shapes here, and you can actually play around with this line. Alright, so if we press Shift-C on our keyboard, we actually end up with the anchor point tool. And what we can do with the anchor point tool is grabbing somewhere in this line and just bend it completely. And this will look a little bit wonky because it's super laggy, but if we let go, you actually see that it looks kind of nice. So now we can use these handles to plan out the direction of our stars completely how we want it. Alright, so if you want to have more or less stars, you can go to the blend options and add more or less. I think with 4 we should be fine. Actually, I'm going to pick 5, so I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to go to blend, expand, and I'm actually going to remove this second to last one here. So I'm going to remove this one and bring this one around here. Alright, so with all of these selected, what I'm going to do is basically the same as before. I'm going to show it to you one more time. So I'm going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and 10 pixels should be okay, I think. So one thing I'm going to do right now is immediately with all of these selected, merge them and put them to the background. So I'm going to go Arrange, Send to Back. If we go to the layer menu here, you can actually see, I'm just going to put it here, that we now have the outlines here as a group. And basically what I'm going to do is select this whole group, but then holding Shift, I'm going to deselect the outline here. And I'm going to group all the original stars. And now we're going to change the fill color to the background color here. So these are still into a group. So what we can do is just give these a stroke. And I'm going to just put the stroke to the outside and make the stroke 10 pixels. And now you can see that these stars are actually like going in front of one another. And again, let me just show you real quick, fast forward, how to make the blend again with the drop shadow. Alright, and lastly, we can also use the free transform tool to select all of them and then slant them. So something like this maybe. And I think I want to put the text up front here, so I'm going to go and grab all of these and paste them to the back. And this leaves us with a nice Y2K logo with some stars. Alright guys, I hope this video was a little bit helpful. If you want to get the project files for these tutorials, you can become a patron of mine. Besides getting access to all of my project files from all of my tutorials and live streams, you'll also get a 15% discount in my asset web store, and you can also get an exclusive Discord role. If you go 1 tier up, you'll become a Dreadlabs insider, which also gives you access to the full episodes of my Starting a Streetwear Brand series. If you want to become a patron, there's a link in the description. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, or you can join us on Discord. And with all of that being said, this was Tom from Dreadlabs tuning out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.